So my first poem I discovered first thing this morning. I was reading Writer's Almanac, and I was looking for a first zinger poem of my own to read and hadn't found one. And this just popped up in time. So I decided I would read this to you because I was charmed by it. Why I Love Being Married to a Chemist by Barbara Crooker. Because he can still cause a reaction in me when he talks about SN2 displacements, amines, and esters looking for receptor sites at the base of their ketones. Because he lugs home serious tomes like the Journal of the American Chemical Society or the Proceedings of the Society of the Plastics Industry, the opposite of the slim volumes of poetry with colorful covers that fill my bookshelves. Because once, years ago, on a Saturday before our raucous sun rang in the dawn, he was just standing there in the bathroom, out of the shower. I said, "Honey, what's wrong?" And he said, "Oh, I was just thinking about a molecule." Because he taught me about sublimation, how a solid like ice can change straight to a gas without becoming liquid first. Because even after all this time together, he can still make me melt. It's a great poem. Her name's Barbara Crooker. I've been experimenting recently with lists, and so these next two poems are list poems. Now that I'm a grown-up, if I had it to do over again, what would I want to be? A conductor for the Seattle Symphony at Benaroya Hall, a sign language interpreter at concerts, creating a ballet with my hands, a curator for StoryCorps at the Library of Congress, a recognized poet, a flamenco dancer with a flaming partner, an ice cream tester tasked with developing 40 new flavors, an apprentice to a world-famous tea taster. So there you have it, a sea of textures, movement with flowing arms, a wannabe ballet dancer, a sensuous taster. This next poem is called Smell Nostalgia, and see if there's ones this is just a history of smells all through my life, and see if there's ones that you can identify with as well. That big jar of white paste in kindergarten, the scent of recently mimeographed sheets in 3rd grade, and the messy smell of finger paint. Cherry tobacco, how it apologizes for the stink of cigars. Father's musk, a man who never used deodorant. Mother's Chanel No. 5 that left its faint traces in every room she entered. Stinking ginkgo fruit with stench akin to vomit. Cleansing mist of eucalyptus trees, so like the Vicks vapor rub my mother eased on my chest. The I can't resist smell of certain heirloom roses, the way you have to lean in to sniff them when so many others disappoint. Firecrackers with their acrid smoke that blights the air. Smell of a woman, a little sour, but not that bad, which tempts the lover to sniff her panties, and how even the ripe sweat of men entices. And finally, the fragrance of freshly baked bread from the Wonder Bread factory. This is a really short love poem to my husband, and I don't think it'll embarrass him. The other night, I was stealing kisses to keep as stowaways for the lean times. In that same sack, I hoarded the warmth of your open chest, so ready to receive me, and the twin clicks our feet make as they spoon under cover. Let me take a drink, but I've written a bunch of poems about aging, and so this is just one of many. Time cracks her knuckles. I am not dead woman walking or floating. I still kiss the stars, track full moon for its golden strip laid bold across the ocean. If it's a matter of size to gain stature in the world's eyes, I have failed. Each year, a shorter me in the mirror. What persists are the senses, though they dim, even tell lies. The brain is the culprit, nasty liar. She spins fantasies and tall tales that wake me in the middle of the night, keep me from living in present tense. I love looking at the moon, especially full moon, and so this was written for the blue moon in August, blue moon. This morning, the moon, a mere shadow of herself, hid behind smoky clouds, coquettish with her blue light, which dims and brightens. I seek her out all month as she plays that edgy game. Mostly, I track her fullness, wait, not so patiently, for that moment when she graces the sailish sea with a ribbon-like carpet for ferrymen to ride. There's a great poem by Naomi Shihab Nye, which many of you may know of her as a poet, called Kindness, and I patterned this poem after her poem. What Sorrow Is, after Naomi Shihab Nye. To know what sorrow is, you need to stumble and fall. You need to curb perfection's bite before she mounts a keen defense and takes you down a one-way street. You need to smile at your friend's good fortune, knowing that someday your turn will come. Losses come in threes in fairy tales. Death, your best friend's dementia, divorce. More than threes if you care to check, like the hamster wheel that turns in the middle of the night. You need to sit alone with eyes half closed and find your mother's face, that rare mix of sadness and pride, the steeliness it takes to release a child into the unknown. This next poem is a complete imaginary fantasy, but I had fun with it. It has a number of Yiddish words, but I think you'll get them because you'll just get them from the context. Mother fantasizes her last meal. She orders something healthy, soothing, like chicken soup with knedlach. Feels weak, cold, and parched. Nothing better for that than chicken soup, though thoughts of past meals loom larger, like the time she sucked the marrow from beef bones, so luscious she made herself sick from the too muchness of it. Better yet, she thinks, how about blintzes, stuffed in eggy crepes, blättlach, thin and delicate, then fried, or for her final meal, chopped chicken liver. Fried onions mixed with hard-boiled eggs, the liver cooked in onion-sweetened schmaltz. She craves those foods that stick to her ribs, stuff that hums its sustenance as she sinks back on her pillow, eyes closed, dreams. I think it's two more poems. This one is dedicated to my wonderful grandson, Henry. As a grandmother for Henry. I do the math, calculate how old I will be when he enters college. Soon, soon the bell gongs as time ticks off its decades. At 12, entering 7th grade, his body sprouts, from the curved bundle of infancy to this new little man, lean and lanky, so casual with his arms strung across his mother's shoulders, their heights almost matching. I could almost cry at the sweet intimacy of their love and at the imagined letting go. But even my room full of school photos taken each year will never be enough to hold him still. Thank goodness for that. But okay, last poem. Riding bareback on a bike. There was a time when I coasted on my brother's bike down a long hill steep enough to feel windswept. There was a time when I was fearless, invincible as only a kid can be, when danger never rang her daily gong or put my shoulders on high alert or sent the mind's sentry to roster her long list of worries. There was a time when I knew how to fly. Thank you, guys.
So 10 years between my two books, and I have the proof copy here tonight, which I'm happy to read out of, but it'll be out in about 6 weeks, so just in time for the holidays. I titled this book In the Spaces Between Us because it's really about relationships, and a lot of my poems are about relationships between those in my life, with animals, with the earth, and for me, the spiritual realm. So I'm going to share poems that represent those states of being tonight. The first poem is an early memory of mine. I was about 11 or 12, and I greatly admired my best friend's mother. And she was very kind to me one day when I went to visit my best friend and surprised her mother with a visit instead. It's called My Best Friend's Mother Paints Her Nails. Uninvited, I interrupt her rare moment of quiet. Her long, narrow body dints the lounge chair cushion under the porch canopy. Hard to believe I am alone with her. No other children darting around or another meal to make. A lovely creamy red, her toes dry in the wash of lucid summer air. I have known her all my life, and my adoration grows as I become my preteen body. I know nothing of where she came from. Refined, she slides the file into her leather manicure set. With shoulder blades like tiny bird bones above her blouse, she blows softly her deep red fingernails. Swells with the scent of her perfume waft my way. Instead of sending me home, she drenches me in the generosity of conversation, pulls my hand close, and asks me to pick a color. You remember those kindnesses when you're a young person. This next poem is, I don't know about you, but every once in a while you'll find yourself on a subject that you never thought you'd come across, and I came across what was an old profession in the mid-1880s, and people used to be death photographers. And back then, when people died and children died suddenly, the families wanted to capture that person, and they captured them as if they were alive. And so I thought, wow, what a role to be in and that position. And so I recreated this person, and I made him very compassionate. The death photographer, mid-1800s. Mostly children. He knows composition and light and exposure. But his honed skill is the pose. The baby in peaceful slumber, the doll placed under the arm of a young girl, the boy's feet crossed at the ankle, the mother styling her daughter's hair, puffing up her dress sleeves by blowing breath at the cuff, their shadows pressed on a plate in precise permanence. He did what they asked. Some wanted to add color to the cheeks. The father who needed help propping his 5-year-old son against a wooden box. Dressed and suddenly standing in his cotton shirt, knickers, and boots. He didn't say no when the mother asked if it was too much, if she put a bouquet of wildflowers from her garden in his hand. Beyond the flowers were the boy's eyes, and when they couldn't do it, he stepped around his camera and opened them. The reflecting light made him question the boy's dead heart. Perfect, they say. This is exactly how we want to remember him. In relationship to animals, I volunteer at a dog shelter, an animal shelter. And boy, have I learned a lot in 6 years. And there's a lot, it's a place of connection and a place of disconnection. And the connection is I love those dogs and I love my moments with those dogs. But there's a lot of judgment in what happens there. And at the beginning of my journey, I saw people surrendering dogs, and that was often interpreted as abandonment. And I've learned a lot since then, and it's not necessarily that. But here's an early poem from me kind of processing that. Walking shelter dogs. I tell them the best moments are when it's just you and the dog out in the field, when the sunlight braids itself in the tall grasses, and the birds gossip and flit in a nearby tree line. You arrive at the memorialized bench where the plaque thanks a dead volunteer. As you both sit there, you run your hand down his back and rub his chest, and he takes a deep breath and sighs. You say a few kind words to him and think about your own abandonment. When your sister forgot to pick you up from school, when your best friend made out with the boy she knew you liked and you weren't friends anymore, when the parent you adored broke open with a terrible imperfection. I think all of you are probably like me, and you're struggling with our relationship to the earth and climate change and how we even deal with it and think about it. And I was very touched by a news report that I read that came out of Iceland in 2019, where they actually took the glacier off of the list of being a glacier because it didn't have the attributes or characteristics of a glacier anymore. And 100 people climbed up to the glacier with a memorial plaque and basically had a funeral for the glacier. And this is a short poem. Upon Glacier Öxekol, August 2019, Iceland. 100 people hiked in silence to the last dangling melt of pure water, to what is now the lost language of ice. A funeral for a dead glacier. White mass turned to dirt and scree under their feet. Where is the turquoise blue? A child asks. And I think probably you're like me too, where we're struggling with our role and where we can help and where we can make change and what we can do. And I don't know about you, but my big thing is garbage, because no matter how hard I try, we all produce garbage. So this poem reflects my tug and war I have with trying to do something about it, yet still producing it every day. 7 pounds of trash a day, and that includes me and every other American. Every Thursday on our block, we haul our rotting food scraps, our number 5 and 6 plastic and styrofoam containers to the curb. And I'm thinking how my plastic coffee lid from Starbucks will take 20 to 30 years to decompose in some shapeless, 300-foot-high, immortal slum of our bygones. How skittering birds will drum up some dead thing amid the bursting pile of tormented colors. Everything inside me is rattling, like wind driving at a loose door, at how pithy my small changes. Not buying plastic water bottles, shortening my hot showers, turning down the heat. When I, too, am part of humanity that simply is changing too late. as if the earth can keep sustaining us, as if it's not really the earth at all. The spiritual realm is an interesting one. I will say that I think most people get a strong connection with that realm through nature. And my brother is certainly one of them. And he lives in Spokane, where I'm part-time. And he doesn't have a lot of money, doesn't get to travel much. And I brought him over here to stay on Vashon Island with me. And he just thought he was brought to another planet. It was so wonderful. And one day I came out, he got up ahead of me, and I saw him standing at the beach with his arms up. And I captured this poem from his point of view. Visiting my sister's island home, I left behind the basalt rocks of the Scablands to stand in the fold of the ocean's pull. The sand soft underneath my feet as the tide releases her swell. The robin replaced by a blinking heron, her tucked wings lustrous as her long legs sidestep the weedy rocks. Waterlight traces the edge of shore in white waves. Like the call of my firstborn breath, I draw salt into my lungs, and as the tilt of light blends itself mysteriously, I lift my arms. There is no in front of me or behind me. Unveiled, I am all air and no air at once. Call it what you want. When a bird calls overhead the way it exists without thinking of existence, that is me, nowhere but here. And I will close with, I think, a poem that kind of combines it all. Travel can do that. So you travel with people you love, you're with other humans. Who doesn't interact with the animals or see the animals there? Look around at the landscape, you're a new landscape. And I always seem to have some other realm experience on travel. You're on high alert and everything's kind of new and fresh. And so I had a very fortunate opportunity to travel with some best friends to Ireland a few years ago. And we had this beautiful day in County Clare. And on the way home, we had to slow our car because a farmer was having his cows cross the road. Simple as that. I'll close with this. Thank you. At once. North of the peninsula, we can see for miles on both sides. Barns, farmhouses, and how the deep measure of light tongues the tall grass. The North Atlantic wind beats into our faces. Sea arches, salt spray, the smell of peat. Sometimes I wish for better days, but not today. You slow the car. What was vast is now singular. A tribunal of cows saunter across the road from one field to another. Heads hang like lanterns, a chorus of hooves, jabbing of shoulder blades. This procession of trust knows no timetable. Be it the sweet prod of the farmer's voice, or all of us watching in silence, we are home. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I'm going to start introducing myself with a poem that is in my book that we wrote with my friend Susie, who's here, among other people, and it's called Personals. You'll get to know me a little bit. Bill, you'll appreciate this. Some say I have a degree in worry, but they are wrong. It's a PhD in catastrophe. That said, all's okay now and then with a few forgotten highs and many remembered lows. I used to like houseplants, but now I mostly weed. I love dahlias, but mine tend to wither. There are water shortages interspersed with deluges. Oh, and I tend to be contrarian. On the subject of animals, ctenophores were my family favorites. My dad filled my mother's water glasses with their soft, floaty, and occasionally luminescent forms when he ran out of specimen jars. Fires are warm and wonderful if our toddlers don't wander into them. I am shrinking in all dimensions now. Maybe someday I will be an angel on the head of a pin. We were going to have our neighbor's tree trimmed, but the arborist told us time and the bronze birch borer beetle would save us a lot of money. He was right. If I could remember that I put a pot on the stove, I might cook. I won music awards, but they got away from me. I am good at talking back and bad at talking nice. If this were New York City, my feet would hurt. Women wearing spike heels, better Uber everywhere. I beg for attention. It's easier to net birds than you think, but it's a shitload of trouble to get them wings out intact. Beware of owls. I find praying mantises in the strangest places. I would like to see Elvis somewhere. I've aged out of cataclysmic metamorphosis, and I can't find my sister's arguments or sea stars. Move over, God, you clod. I'm taking the helm. And my next one, I love creatures, and especially sea creatures. And so I brought a sea star. I became quite concerned and involved in the sea star viral pandemic about 6 or 8 years ago, and my husband and I were doing citizen science stuff and measuring them, and I was thinking about them all the time, and this is a Pysastra ocraceus. It dried. I found it and let it dry out. And I like to read this poem to it. It's called Cursing Desert Sea Star. I see you here now, desiccated, spiny-skinned, cockeyed cuticle of radial symmetry. You are a fake celebrity. The pebbled surface of your horny test cuddles a bumpy, cunty hole surrounded by suckers. You, an aesthetic trickster who evaginates your gut into and onto your enemies under the guise of stardom. Your thorny relatives down under wreak havoc on the barrier reef, a mere stand-in for my own species of reek-wrecking poison spreaders. But let us not let you off easy, you creepy, crawly, carrion-eating, lovely scavenger under the undersea. I call you Neptune's vulture. Why do you haunt me where I go on my flower quest? I almost crush the year's first bitter root as it cringes under my step. Your odorless, dried-up spindle of selfhood. You are dead, yet you abandoned your bright past to make me short shrift the glory of the sun-yellow buckwheat and the purple sage, as I daydream only of you. That's my thought. Now we have to call them sea stars. You know, they changed the terminology. The next one, like you, Miriam, I'm talking to my husband a little bit. It's called, so I took a mushroom course, and the guy who ran the mushroom course pronounced it psilocybin, psilocybe, and I sort of like that. So this is called, this better? This is called Psilocybe Love Story. I dread winter this year. After our summer of virus, the joys of outdoor gatherings are smothered by smoke. Now more than ever, the encroaching dark and thoughts of boots swelching over mud threaten my composure. Rain-filled rivers will flow high long after summer flames are doused. Lush underbrush will spring back from summer crush in greening woods. Short days loom wet and dry, though psilocybes wait to be plucked under cow dung pancakes. That's where you find them. Raindrops may be sipped like ambrosia from moss sponges and lichen cups. My dread of the wet season morphs into lovely mushroom memories. I dream back to the first autumn that my loving partner joined me in the West. We reunited in the moist luxuriance of deep Olympic rainforest near the vast Pacific Ocean. Magical futures unfurled before us. Botanical resonance with communal memories sprung from deep wells of tribal archetypes. and visions spilled over iron-red cliffs. Rivers of energy flowed like blood over spirits of grand and ancient cedars washed in from the sea. Intrepid totems of hope and strength, I look to them for sustenance during difficult days ahead. So now we're going to take a walk around Green Lake, which I like to do too. It's called Seasons of the Lake. And some of these, we've had COVID recently, so a bunch of these were written during COVID. Seasons of the Lake. Last summer, we counted 3, and we wondered what kept them here as we went from bird to bird to bird on our daily walks around the lake. No matter the season or the sorrow, we carry our cares from heron to heron. How there were 3, and now we count 5. Hunkered down in the cold gray among the trees above brightly hued ducks on the water below, vibrant males, subdued females dabble about. The white-fronted goose is a surprise among the multitude of Canadians. It wanders alone, reflecting the weather and our future foreboding. Among a legion of sameness, a Eurasian widgeon distinguishes itself. Another creature blown off course on a stormy transoceanic flight. The eagle and its island eyrie spooks the mergansers and the coots. We track around from day to day in this crazy COVID cacophony. So sometimes during the winter, and I have a few more winter poems, so I don't want to get you too down, but I'll talk to you about my vacation where I took the family to Mexico. You asked about my vacation, and I said it was a whole life lived. I said it was marriage and divorce and sex and slavery. It was childhoods gone awry, experiments among children. It was land and sea and poverty. It was turtles crawling across hot sand while predatory flocks soared overhead. It was outside living seen by kids who never knew life beyond a city without inside plumbing or wiring. No easy access to repair cleft palate or clubbed foot. It was smells of food and sewer, open trenches, open planches. It was sights our kids don't see in their lives of luxury. It was the microcosm writ large, memories that start and stay under roofs and stars and crescent moon, resurrected by steady boom of surf and heart. And here's another one. I have 2 more. And this one's about aging and looking into the night and what we think about things. It's called Black Windows of the Night. Each night we sit together as the dark lengthens and the snowy mountains fade at an earlier hour. I light candles as he watches. We cook together, prodding, coaching, and sometimes criticizing. I recognize the patterns of our dailiness, how we reach over each other with the comfort and soft contempt of the familiar. Together so long, we abandon the formality of manners. I look and see his dad's facial lines drifting downward on his face, hear the slower cadence of his father's voice. Changes of countenance make him only resemble the handsome Drake who courted me. In the black windows of the night, we are an old couple lingering over dinner. I see why my new friend didn't recognize that old photo I posted on the fridge, and I have to wonder how soon there will be only one of us looking back. And it's getting to be Thanksgiving, so I'll just do a Thanksgiving poem. It's called, It Was a Night of Psychedelic Canaries at Grandmother's House. The baby screams in the house full of leftover turkey and stuffing, fries and pies, potatoes mashed by another shrieker and his dad. Sleep settles into all the warm beds but mine. Awake as windows rattle, I pen a poem. Stillness embraces all the others downstairs. Our dogs mumble in sleep, paws tapping. I imagine owls clutching furious dancing branches outside, snuggling the tree trunks, while I'm cozy in my bed, mute as a mouse. The neon spirits of the departed visit me as I remember full houses of Thanksgivings long past, preserved in dusty attic photos. I listen and wait for the rain to stop, hope the precipice perched over us holds steady under howling gusts. I imagine hot coffee in the quiet morning. I'm hankering for tomorrow's aromas, leftovers for breakfast with pie, stuffing, and maybe an egg thrown in, cracked and scrambled in the pan. Tomorrow, another drenched day with games and cranberry nibbles, veggie loaf with pudding, still until the kids' next crescendo of tears. Thank you.
And I'm glad Miriam made it back to her seat because this first poem is for her. And one of the things that have done a lot of in the last couple of years is make collage poems such as these. And when I started them, I was only using materials that were on my desk. And one of the things I had on my desk was a poem that Miriam had written notes on, so I cut out one of her notes and it appears in this poem. So this one is going to come your way when I finish reading it. It also has some writing of my mom's from a notebook from middle school, and the rest of the pieces are pretty much from junk mail. Where you bring love, this is glorious. Chief of all, a harbor for emerald time, a waterfront philosophy of bird and leaf, a gallery of coastlines, giving providence to a copious horizon. And this one is the title poem of my new chapbook, Behind the Scenes at the Eternal Everyday. Behind the scenes at the Eternal Everyday, you paint your own needs for fresh resilience. You're working the next chapter to thrive in things primary, using your garden hands like security. And my last poem today is A Poet Glows in the Dark. And there's the, glows in the dark. A poet glows in the dark, practical and silent, returning forms into the world below, on hundreds of clever keys, faster than this wave, in touch again with inside drama, ending today at the loop built for fiction.
Hey, live up to, okay? I just have to say this really quick. I have a good friend who's a swim instructor, and she was giving a swim lesson to a little 3-year-old named Jeremy today. And they were doing some kicks, and they were taking a little break, and he looks at her. This just happened today. He looks at her, and he says, "What's the bravest thing you've ever said?" Wow. And she thought, and she says, I'm not sure. How about you, Jeremy? Gosh, what's the bravest thing you've ever said? Help. Whoa. What are you, like 3-year-old Aristotle or something? Like, oh my God. Yeah, I love that. Feel free to write a poem about that. I will be doing that as soon as I get home. Neil Scott, my good friend, it's so great to see you. I have 2 poems. The first one is very short, and the title is actually part of the poem. So the title is Poetic Justice. Poetic justice occurred the day the man who designed high-heeled shoes married the woman who invented the necktie. Thank you. And this was a piece that was published in Portland Review a few years ago. It's called Please Rate Your Experience. Number one, now that your life is over, please answer this short survey and rate your overall satisfaction as a human being. A, very satisfied. B, somewhat satisfied. C, somewhat dissatisfied. C, somewhat dissatisfied. D, very dissatisfied. Number two, how likely would you be to recommend human life to a friend? A, definitely would. B, probably would. C, probably would not. D, you'd be better off as a defective satellite endlessly orbiting the Earth. Number three, if reincarnation is possible, how likely would you be to return to life as a human? A, very likely. B, somewhat likely. C, somewhat unlikely. D, would my ex-wife still be there? Number four, in terms of your overall satisfaction, how would you rate your experience with the following human conventions? Money. A, I had just the right amount. B, I always wanted more. C, more money, more problems. D, put it this way, on my deathbed, I wasn't calling my broker or the Bank of America. Number five, compared to other forms of human experience, how would you rate sexuality? A, I had just the right amount. B, I always wanted more. C, more sex, more problems. D, put it this way, I died in bed with my boss's wife. Number six, I noticed nobody's home watching the Republican debate tonight. Number six, how would you rate politicians and the political process? A, for the most part, they were incompetent but seemed to mean well. B, for the most part, they were incompetent. C, they could find a way to tax anything from gravity to bird farts. D, this survey is genuinely starting to piss me off. Number seven, finally, in just a few words, what would you change, if anything, about the human experience? First, I'd get rid of hiccups and hangovers. Secondly, hair would grow only where and when desired. Also, eliminate everything related to menstruation. Eliminate people at four-way stops who don't know the right-of-way laws. Get rid of racists, misogynists, ageist, xenophobes, homophobes, and everyone who falls into the general category of asshole. Thank you, ma'am. And finally, do away with anyone who calls you in the middle of dinner or your afterlife spirit quest and asks you to take a short survey. Thank you.
I'm going to read two poems tonight. The first one, I participated in a contest recently that was sponsored by Poetry Superhighway. I don't know if any of you know about that, but Rick Lupert, who also runs a reading on Tuesday nights on Zoom, Cobalt Poetry, he's also in charge of Poetry Superhighway. Well, there were over 800 people that entered. There were over 1,200 poems that came in. And believe it or not, I came in tied for number 6. Totally surprised me. Anyway, this was a poem that came in as number 6. It's entitled, I Would Rather Write About Peace. It's far too cold for wandering alone without a coat, just harsh enough to stay at the window looking out, hand pressed against the pane. The streets are full of strangers carrying burdens no one can guess. There are no replacement parts left. I see it in their faces. Some days I don't fret so much about nuts and bolts, planned obsolescence. Other days, this machine of flesh won't let me forget. Once you've left the house, there's no turning back. It doesn't matter that you have a spare key. That's not what will save you. Curl up like a beggar sheltered in the church vestibule, but leave your faith behind. You'll find time enough come morning to believe. Those bruises, they're not from sleeping on concrete or fists against skin. You got them from the soft places where you thought you were safe. It's okay to make plans if they ease you. Just know, traffic alerts mean nothing. Love is homeopathic, and fear is musky like pheromones. As long as the bombs land somewhere else, we're free. And I have a new book out. It was done with an artist that I met many, many years ago in San Diego, Brad Burkhart. And basically, it's his sculptures, and I wrote poems to go with his sculptures. So I'm just going to read you. I have a couple books on the table, too. But anyway, this is kind of what the book, what it looks like. It's pretty amazingly laid out. The title of the piece is called Joyful Imagination, which is also the title of the poem. In some of these, the titles of the poems and the titles of the pieces aren't the same, but sometimes he actually changed the titles of his pieces to go with what I titled the poem. So, Joyful Imagination. There is no hiding the force of goodness, the strength of connection, the timeless understanding of what is and what may be. It is written on your face and mine, hovers above each of us with promise to be embraced as we walk this path with friends, amid chirping birds, playful pets, the sound of music filling the air, filling our heads with the delight we are called to share. After all, we must start somewhere. Thank you. One of the things I meant to say.
I always have trouble with the daylight savings time and going to daylight savings time and then even coming back from daylight savings time. And I thought as I got older, it would get easier. It's not. It's harder. So I actually wrote, this is daylight losing time. Let me count the ways that I hate daylight savings time. First of all, I'm not a morning person. Second of all, I'm not a morning person. Wait, did I say that already? So the first week or two, I wake up already late. Late already. Wait, did I say that? I wake up and I'm late. Wait, I'm already late. Second, or is it third? It doesn't save shit. Not a fucking thing. As an avowed, unrepentant night person, I have lost an hour of my favorite time, night. Show me the savings. They call it DST like it is some kind of rocket science or Lorentz transformation. The only technology involved is the mechanics of making all the clocks align to this freaking fantasy. The stove, the microwave, the car, the bedside clock, the wind-up, all different. Time lost, not saved. I wake by sunlight, read in the morning, but now I'm already late. I tell time by visual braille. You know, it feels like 4, but now it's like time to quit. No wonder heart attacks go up. Who's counting? Am I up to 10 yet? Let me count the ways that I hate daylight savings time. At last, in fall, the clock slips back to standard and we can get our hour back. But then we have to relearn how to reset that one clock. More time lost. Hot soup coming through. We just finished watching the 4th of July fireworks show at the old Gasworks Park in Seattle. I wanted to say it was the year where they had it programmed on a microcomputer to seamlessly mesh the fireworks to the music, but they apparently screwed it up and ran the computer program backwards. It's true. so that the show started off with a frenetic ejaculatory finale, then more or less trickled down to a whimper with everybody kind of looking at each other by the end with raised eyebrows and a shrug, so that's it then. But it turns out the show was over. Lights came on and thousands of people moved in a subdued and sleepy mass out the exits and oozed down blocked off streets into Wallingford. My kids were in elementary and middle school. It was late for them, but they still had the twinkle of fire in their eyes. The crowd was languid and rather slow-moving, like a pudding. Suddenly, behind us, a crisp young male voice barked out cheerfully, "Hot soup coming through." Reflexively, the crowd parted like a liquid to let this 6-foot zephyr on rollerblades pass through as if we were a fish, as if he were a fish and we a stream. It worked perfectly. Hot soup. A magical inspiration that parted a sleepy crowd as he whisked by, grinning. I believe a companion followed him just as quick. And just like that, the two zephyrs slipped through the stream of sleepy people and disappeared. I shall never forget the look on the kids' faces, the oval "oh" of their mouths, and the wide-eyed look of astonishment. "You can do this?"
Hi, everybody. I have no books. I have thousands of poems and an occasional need to share. And I come here tonight from the Western Washington Poets Network, which is awesome. If you're not a member, definitely get involved in that. So it's my first time here at C&P. Delighted to be here. I have a couple of poems about Thanksgiving. First one's called Communion Day. Thanksgiving is mostly a feeling of gratitude and grace, of reflection and rumination amidst the rustling of autumn leaves before we fall headlong into the mouth of winter and the disarray of December. Today we refill our cup of kindness with bountiful blessings as we look into the eyes of yesterday, hearing the echoes of times gone by. If your heart is heavy, be still. Look behind the pain. Set aside the sorrow and weave between the heartaches to find the essence of gratitude and joy. For every sunset bridges the promise of a brighter day. And whether they be near or far, speak softly to those you love and those who love you. Some will hear your voice, others will hear your heart. For today is Communion Day. Listen to the quiet. Let the lingering silence dance slowly inside of you. Be clear-hearted and mindfully still, for every sunset brings the promise of a bright new dawn. For we are carried through the turbulence by faith in God and in one another. Let us hold fast to the moving moments and embrace the love that surrounds us on this Thanksgiving Day as we count our blessings and then count them again. Today is a day to celebrate friendship, insulate our souls with thankfulness, for it's not about the meal, it's about those who surround the table, being ever thankful for the never-ending gift of hope. And may these curated feelings linger in our heart for more than just Communion Day. My second poem is Thanksgiving and the Hourglass. I sit alongside my ever-present hourglass as the grains of time slip slowly to the pedestal, oblivious to the day or time. There are far more grains at the bottom of the glass as the zenith runs thin and the currency of time slowly dissipates. Thanksgiving offers a marvelous milepost, a reckoning of blessings, considerable and diminutive, as life takes a breath as we lovingly look around. Relationships are the treasure. Love is the magical gift. As Thanksgiving binds us all together with gratitude and grace on a bridge built with memories. Despite deaths and tragedy, which hurts our tired hearts, today we celebrate a world filled with blessings, ruminations, reflections, and genuflections towards the power of love. This year, be someone's Thanksgiving. Embrace the day, the moment, the time. Celebrate with love and laughter, for now it's all that really matters, a true and special Thanksgiving.
I have a couple of poems. First one is called About the 1st of October. I moved my desk to be closer to a window, one that looks out over Elliott Bay. In the early morning light, I noticed a tan spider. Her color is PMS 118 in the PMS color book. For 7 years, as I worked with art directors and composite design people, I would listen to them talk for hours and hours about what color to put in the words, the vowels I had written. The Pantone matching system, delightful, nicknamed PMS, which I thought stood for premenstrual syndrome, of which I didn't have it, I don't have it anymore, as I started my career much later than usual. But that has nothing to do with this. The story of my tan spider, PMS 131 too light, PMS 146 too dark, PMS 3995 way too dark. But while I'm on the system page, I looked at the different shades of gray coming up from Elliott Bay outside the window. There's warm gray, 45, then cool gray, 107. PMS color people should come to Seattle in November or October to get a taste of gray. I should build a web, but what would I catch, as I don't eat bugs? I would catch tacos on a Tuesday or angel food cake on Fridays. Would I eat a cake that had flown up 8 stories through the air, up 8 stories on a rainy day? Of course. Of course. There's always, but first I would have to learn how to build a web. All right. If I can't find it, you guys are lucky here. All right. This one's called Leaves. Take a look. You have to notice, if you look up, leaves, red or orange or slightly umber, are deciding to fall or hang on. I am watching the leaves on a maple down the street. I can see them turning red, imitating the sun as it sets. Leaves drop their heads like praying before letting go and racing each other to the cold gray cement. It's all subject to the wind of time, and maybe the weather channels might predict rain. Do leaves talk? They've been hanging together since April, full and bright in May, not falling during the last rainstorm in the spring. I'm still up here, says the 5-fingered maple leaf. I'm strong, and I will outlast you, little apricot sprout. The apricot leaf is silent, too busy guarding the fruit. Now it's late fall, November. The plums are squashed into jam. Many leaves, all colors, have committed suicide. They have loosened their grip and let go and surrender to gravity. Some land below the tree or wait for the wind. Others dive onto a car windshield and are sped away to a foreign spot. So foreign that leaves there have to ask, where did you come from? You don't belong here. The foreigners agree and take off. At the first sign of a new wind, if you catch one, make a wish. It's like on a birthday cake. Those, like on a birthday cake. You get one wish, but be careful what you wish for. Flying leaves wishes always come true for you and not a stranger. So be careful. The leaves always get answered in the next wind.
We both do Wordle.
Okay?
Are you familiar with Wordle? But you have to figure out in 6 tries what the word of the day. It's a 5-letter word. And so there was at first kind of a competitiveness. Well, I got it in 3, and you only got it, it took you 4. Or we'd feel really bad if we did 6. And, you know, and then if you didn't get it at 6, your streak was over, you know. But somewhere along the line, I started it, and then she just jumped right in. And we kept upping the ante, is to make a little short poem out of the words that we came up with. So it didn't matter. In fact, if you had 6, then you actually had more words to work with. And sometimes hers was like little short stories. Well, this is mine today. The 4 words. If any of you not do Wordle and you haven't done it yet, you only have until midnight. Are you planning on doing it? Because this is a spoiler. It is, okay, all right. The word is ninja. And it took me 4 to get there. And it was chase, party, anvil, and then I got it, ninja. You know, here's a way to do it. So here's my little story. I can't chase. Oh, the other thing she upped the ante, we have to use the words in sequence. And they have to be used exactly as it is. You can't make them past tense or anything like that. So that's up the ante a little bit. So this is mine. I can't chase after every party girl anymore. I spend every night now shaping metal art on my iron anvil and practicing esoteric ninja moves.
It's a place in San Francisco, some of you may know of, where the beat poets used to read. So we went in there for our first anniversary, and I wrote this poem. Vesuvio, you break my heart. You put it back like a puzzle. You ask me, why aren't you writing? And I say, it's personal.